Is this like a good lighting? It's a little bit, it's less like this week because I'm not tan. Spooky Sunday dinners, spooky Sunday dinners, spooky Sunday dinners. I still can't afford a theme song. Hey guys, for those of you that don't know, my name is Johnny Taylor and this is Spooky Sunday Dinners, where every Sunday, every other Sunday, when I'm late Monday, I'll explain Thursday eventually, we talk about a true crime case that I just really want to talk about while we make a fairly easy recipe. So if true crime, cooking, and dark humor is your thing, you might want to hit that subscribe button below. Hey guys, we're back. Hopefully you're here from last week's video. As most of you hopefully know, this is part 2 of the Cursed Exorcist film. If you didn't see last week's video, it will for sure be linked below. But don't worry, you don't have to watch it to understand this. I wouldn't do that to you. Yet. So if you are here from last week's video, you already know that this week we are going to be talking about Paul Bateson, the active serial killer that was in the Cursed Exorcist film. And this week we are going to be making a hometown favorite of mine, but the vegan version. Yeah, this week we are going to be making a vegan special burger steak. Now, if you're from where I'm from in New Mexico, you definitely know what a special burger steak is. You've just probably never heard of a vegan version. That's where I come in. Super easy recipe with a super weird story. So we know who we're talking about and what we're talking about. So that can only mean it's Karen disclaimer time. Hey Karen. Karen disclaimer number 1. These are not professional recipes. I don't have the nutritional facts and they aren't really for nutritional value. It's just what I feel like making that day. So if you make this and you don't like it or you mess up and you get sick, it's not my fault. Get it together. I already said these weren't professional. Barely mediocre. Karen disclaimer number 2. This is spooky Sunday dinners. Emphasis on spooky. We talk about true crime, murder, disease, and all messed up things, while we sprinkle a nice little bit of comedy on top, because that's how I cope with being obsessed with something so very dark. If that offends you in any way, shape, or form, makes you want to pick up a phone to call, text, DM, email me about what a horrible person I am, my mailbox is full, Karen. Try again next time. Now that that's out of the way. Yes, I am wearing my Exorcist hoodie today. I'm going to be going over the ingredients we're going to need. As usual, they will be listed in the description down below. This is just so you don't get mad at me. I've got 1 package, which equals about 3/4 of a pound of Impossible meat. I'm actually going to split this right down the center and make 2 giant burger patties. Any dairy-free queso of choice. Really anything you like that melts. My 2 favorites happen to be the VioLife cheddar and the Simple Truth mozzarella. You're going to need about 2 russet potatoes. Now I went and cut mine into these little fry-like pieces, soaked them for about 20 minutes in cold water, made sure they were super dry so I can have them ready to go. Y'all already know, but really any green chili of choice. You know, I love myself some Bueno mild chopped green chili, but get what you can get. And finally, our seasonings. We're going to be going in with some salt, pepper, garlic powder, season all salt, and some olive oil. Now, disclaimer, I do use my air fryer to make these French fries. This is actually a recipe from a couple episodes ago that I'll be sure to link down below, but I thought maybe we could use a refresher on it. If you don't have an air fryer, you can make these in the oven or fry them in oil. Live your life. Do your thing. Get an air fryer. Now, the first thing I did was preheat my air fryer to 380 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and dump all of my fry-shaped dry potatoes in a large bowl. From there, I'm gonna spray them with some olive oil and that season all salt. Once they're coated with your olive oil and salt, I'm just gonna give them a quick shake and throw them in the basket attachment of our air fryer for about 15 minutes. All you're gonna wanna do is shake that basket halfway through. Now that our fries really don't need anything else, I'm gonna go ahead, drop that Impossible meat in here, season well with salt, pepper, and garlic, and get to talking about who Paul Bateson is. So, good old Paul. Paul Bateson was born on August 24th of 1940, and he grew up in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. Now, he served in the Army in the early 60s, and that is where he actually started drinking super heavily. It was out of boredom while he was stationed in Germany. And this unfortunately led to a lifetime of alcohol abuse and alcohol issues. After his discharge, he moved back to Lansdale, but then from there decided it was time for him to move to New York City. Our meat is seasoned well. Now we're gonna go ahead, mix it, and make 2 giant patties. I'm also gonna go ahead and put a pan on medium heat. So it's 1964 and Paul just moved to New York City, right? This is where he began a relationship with a man, and it said that this is actually his first same-sex relationship. Now, this relationship was with a man that he said was, quote, heavily involved in music and the music industry. Now, this led to more heavy drinking because of the, quote, shows and parties and, you know, the life of an artist. I missed that memo. But unfortunately, 5 years later, Bateson actually lost his mom to a stroke and his brother shortly after to suicide. Paul had a hard time with this and then went on to make it a point to say that at this time in his life he was not, quote, exclusively gay, which is so weird to me because you know how society loves to put a label on everything. So, Bateson actually starts training and is trained as a neurological radiological technician. And his relationship ended around 1973, and this is where he moved to Brooklyn. While living in Brooklyn, he was actually working at and commuting at the NYU Medical Center. As we know, that is the medical center that was used in the Exorcist film that he was hired as an extra to operate the proper machines there. It's said that his co-workers and the people around him really liked him. He was well respected and great at his job, because that's what they say about all serial killers. Our halfway mark for our fries is already done. We're gonna go ahead, open up the basket, shake it up, and put them in for that last 7 or 8-ish minutes. Now, while working at the NYU Med Center, this is where Paul's drinking problem started to get really, really bad, and it caused him to actually be let go. From there, he worked odd jobs like cleaning apartments and working at like the box office and taking tickets at adult movie theaters, but it also got him to enroll in AA meetings. But unfortunately, by 1977, Paul fell off the wagon again. He stopped going to AA meetings, and he later recalled that he was drinking close to about a quart of vodka a day. He would wake up in the morning and start with 2 to 3 shots before even getting in the shower. And I think when I have a whole root beer, I'm lit, so. Now, throughout this whole time since moving to New York, Paul is actually really into the, quote, leather community in New York City and around the West Village. Now, this was like leather gay bars, what they call leather daddies, things like that. I will say that with being a part of that, quote, community, he said some horrible homophobic things that didn't quite add up that I'm not going to repeat, but I will say kind of feeds into that stigma of what that community was like in the like 60s and 70s and how horrible people were and how men were just taught to be homophobic their whole lives. I'm tired of society and I don't want to be here anymore. We have a backstory. Now the good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead, split this, and throw it in our slightly oiled pan. So at around 1973, a man by the name of Ronald Cabo is actually stabbed to death on his sofa and his apartment was set on fire. This was in the West Village and people really didn't think much of it because at that time, we're talking crime in New York City in the 70s. So people aren't thinking much of it, not really looked into super heavily. But then about 4 days later, Donald McNiven and another man by the name of John P.W. Beardsley, what I would do for such a name. They were ages 40 and 53. They were actually found in Donald's apartment. One was stabbed and one was bludgeoned. They both lived in the building, but they were hanging out in Donald's apartment that was also set on fire. The best part is the police don't connect the two. It's like two corners of a puzzle piece. It's the only part of the puzzle I can get, but NYPD can't get it. From there, about 2 weeks later, the body of Robin Barrera was found floating in the Hudson River. He had been missing for about 5 weeks, and he was found wearing a leather jacket. The same leather jacket he was last seen in the night they believe he was taken. Now, 9 days later, 2 undisclosed gay men were found murdered along with their dog. You know how I feel about that. But they were found in their apartment, and what else was found in their apartment actually helped the police to start putting the pieces together. Their apartment was filled with both leather and BDSM things, accessories, tools. But they finally put the leather together. And that's when they light bulb moment. All of these men that were found were all wearing or had these leather jackets. Now they took one of those leather jackets and traced the tag back to a store in the West Village. And when they got there, it was a nice S&M shop. Beautiful leather items, chains, whips, inspiration for Rihanna songs. But it takes them that long and that many people dead to put together that this is happening in the leather community. Which is good because they figured it out, but bad because this is police in the 70s. So nobody took it seriously. And they continued to not take it seriously, and unfortunately the body of a very well-known drag queen by the name of Toni Lee was found strangled in her apartment. Now at this time, body parts start showing up wrapped up in garbage bags floating along the Hudson River. It's been a couple minutes. We're gonna go ahead and flip over our burger patty. Now, just to put in perspective for you how seriously this was taken, police found out that these parts were being dumped near a, quote, gay cruising spot in the Hudson River. And this is where detectives decide to name this case. Disclaimer, I don't enjoy saying this, but probably important for you to grasp how horrible this was. They called it the in a bag killer. If you're sick and tired of cops, clap your hands. So none of this was taken seriously until the body of Variety magazine film critic Addison Verrill was found stabbed and beaten to death in his apartment. They connect both Toni Lee's murder and Addison to the leather community as well. They both visited these leather bars after hours. We should also note that every single body I've listed, besides the ones in the river, were found in their very own homes. So, a man by the name of Arthur Bell wrote an article in the Village Voice about Addison's murder, and it was the true story, highlighting the fact that he was a gay man who was killed, and there has to be a serial killer on the loose targeting gay men in the leather community. So of course this is where police start to wake up. Alright guys, our fries are done. We're gonna go ahead and check them out coming out of that air fryer. So our fries are done and our burger is almost ready. The last thing we need to prepare is that green chili. Put a couple spoonfuls in a bowl and season heavily with garlic and salt. So the kind of crazy part about this story is after this article comes out, people are waking up, the police wake up, that writer, Arthur, ends up getting a call from somebody who claims to be the killer. He says, listen, I really liked him. We went home together. I found out his intentions with me were not what I thought they were. I thought he loved me. He wanted to be my boyfriend. One day we could get married, and we weren't in it for the same thing. I freaked out, I popped off, I killed the guy. From there, he actually made some undisclosed crime scene info that even Arthur didn't know. Arthur, of course, went to the police and told them every detail, and the police were like, oh my God, thank you so much for doing our job for us. They pretend like they're trying to figure it out and find him, but don't do it in time, and Arthur actually gets a call from a different person. Now, this man that Arthur gets a call from goes ahead and says, hey, I know who did it. This is a man by the name of Richard Ryan, and he lets Arthur Bell know that this was a man that he recently met in AA meetings and like totally confessed to the murder to Richard himself. He lets him know, hey, it's this guy, his name is Paul Bateson, he's living in Brooklyn, like, you need to check it out. So, of course, Arthur, who at this point should be an honorary detective, tells the cops again. So, obviously, the cops finally do their job and go after and find Paul Bateson. It's super easy. The reason it's super easy, when they find and arrest this man, Paul decides that he's going to brag to the officers, the other inmates, basically anybody that will listen, that he, quote, killed a bunch of gay guys just for fun because he was bored. I'm tired of people. So unfortunately, the only case that he actually confesses to is Addison Verrill's, and pretty much because he was the most well-known man that he killed. They can't get the other ones to stick, and Paul is sentenced to 20 years in 1979. Then he got out in 2004. Yeah, Paul Bateson. Maybe find him. I don't know. He'd be like 80 now, so maybe don't find him. All right, guys, our chili is mixed up. Now, controversial, but I like to take my chili right out of the container, season it with salt and garlic, throw it on this. Some people like to put it on the stove with some water, make it a sauce. That's too much. You're doing too much. But if that's what you want to do, I'm not going to judge you. So let's put together our special burger steak and wrap up what could end up being the craziest, worst part of this story. So, super simple. We are going to go fries on the bottom layer, burger patty on top of that, green chili on top of that, and top it with as much cheese as your heart desires. So, the crazy part, besides the murder. But the director of The Exorcist, William Friedkin, actually hears about this because who didn't hear about this at the time? Actually, more people than I thought. Apparently, this is a deep cut serial killer, so you're welcome. But he hears about it, right? And he decides, oh my gosh, I gotta go and interview this dude. He interviews him. While these interviews are happening, a book comes out about this whole situation. The book is called Cruising. Now, William is like, hold up, wait a minute, cha-ching. What if I interview you, I take this book, I direct it, I turn it into a movie, what do you think? And Paul, of course, is like, I think I love it, I'm gonna make a bunch of money, let's do it. And that is where the movie, starring Al Pacino, called Cruising, comes about. Now, this film is horribly homophobic and not okay. It basically says that gay men in the 70s will kill you if you don't want to sleep with them. Amazingly enough, though, the entire LGBTQ+ community in New York finds out about it, and they go to protest at the filming. And by protesting, it is the coolest thing to me. They take mirrors to throw off the lighting, their own lights, whistles, like the cans of air, like the megaphones, anything they can to throw off the filming, the audio for this film, because it's that messed up and horrible. Unfortunately, they do continue to film it, and it comes out in theaters, and it's X-rated. Well, the public hates it, as they should, and it gets pulled from theaters. They do a whole new cut of the film where they cut out like the horrible, awful scenes, but they have to cut out so much of this film that it's extremely short and makes absolutely no sense because half of the story is gone, because half of the story is ridiculous. It's available, you can find it. Please don't watch it, it's not worth it. But in bringing up that film, I would like to bring up one of the most used phrases when it comes to these types of serial killers and murders that happen. And that is when law enforcement and reporters use the term high-risk lifestyle. And honestly, fuck saying somebody has a high-risk lifestyle. If you are part of the LGBTQ plus community, if you are a sex worker, if you are a bartender, if you are anything that law enforcement or reporters don't see as, quote, clean-cut all-American, they immediately say that you live a high-risk lifestyle. Now, that was used so police could, quote, take the worry out of the normal people, and basically so they didn't have to do their jobs. It kind of said that if you lived one of those high-risk lifestyles, people expected you to get hurt or murdered or horrible things to happen to you. Your cases weren't taken as seriously, maybe your evidence went missing, your rape kit wasn't tested, and it's the most ridiculous thing that happens to this day. It's one of the reasons that a lot of these serial killers got away with what they did for so long. So if you hear someone talk about a high-risk lifestyle, be sure to punch them in the face. But really, what did you guys think of this one? It's kind of short and sweet with a super easy recipe, but I felt like we couldn't not talk about Paul Bateson. And I'm kind of wondering now if his creepy vibe is what made that scene in the film so terrifying. So I went ahead and doubled up on layers of chili and cheese on this bad boy so that I could really get all the flavors in there. And here's our finished special burger steak. It's a super easy recipe. You can do what I used to do as a kid, which is kind of gross, and throw some ketchup on that bad boy. And the best part is it's your vegan version, so. Thank you so much for cooking with me this week, and thank you for letting me tell you this insane, almost doesn't make sense story. Be sure to comment below future crimes you want me to cover and recipes you want me to try. Thank you for watching Spooky Sunday Dinners. I am still singing. I still can't afford a theme song. I wonder if Doug will be able to tell it's vegan.